I think lots of people are guilty of this. And this is definitely something that people struggle with a lot. It's basically prioritising someone else's needs over your own. And to the point of it being a bit of self-neglect. It can be very hard for someone to check in with themselves and see, actually, what is my preference here? You know, they might come with a lot of consequences that they don't want to deal with. If we're doing things for the sake of someone else and we're not checking in with ourselves, that eventually is going to lead to resentment, that can lead to burnout, that can lead to, all sorts of negative emotions.
What do you say to those people? How do you help them?
Well, first of all, I want to check in with what do they actually think is fair and reasonable? What are you actually trying to achieve there? Is it not having that person disappointed with you? Is there going to be a consequence for you not doing that particular thing? And people often say to me, I don't like confrontation. And I say to them, but why is it going to be confrontation? Why isn't it conversation?
Because it all comes back to you're willing to make a sacrifice
of you
just to keep someone else happy. So what are some things that people can do to, I guess it's choose themselves, right?
Well, really...
Welcome everybody to the Reconnect to Self podcast, the show that helps you ultimately rediscover what brings you joy. I am your host. My name is Scott. I am a filmmaker and I'm here with my wife, Tracey, who is a counsellor who has over 20 years experience, the last 15 or so in private practice. How are you, babe?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I am well. Today we have an interesting topic. We're going to talk about people pleasers and people pleasing. But before we do, I'd like to acknowledge our sponsor, once again, Dee and the team at UltraTune in Whitfords. Now, they are friends of the show and they just wanted to support us. They don't actually need the business.
Because they're so amazing at what they do already. They've
Absolutely.
got a big customer base. But...
Yes, they're doing this purely because they believe in what we're doing, which is very, very lovely of them. They've been in business for 25 years. They're family owned and run. And the way they do things is absolutely old school customer service. And that's ultimately what you want in a mechanic, because it can be very overwhelming when you're being told your car needs this, that, and the other, and you don't understand what they're talking about, and you kind of just want to know how much it's going to cost you. With Dee and the team, you get that peace of mind that you're dealing with people who are open, honest, and transparent. So thank you. If you're looking for a mechanic in the Perth area, go and see Dee and the team at UltraTune Whitfords and tell them that Scott and Tracey sent you. And do we want to talk about retreats? We talk about this every episode, but I think we can quickly say, if you want to come on the individual retreat that Tracey and I run, that if you're a long-time listener to the show, you'll absolutely know what that is. If you're new to the show, Tracey, do you want to give them like a 30-second spiel on what it is?
Yes, our individual retreats are an opportunity to reconnect back to yourself, look at the things that kind of trigger you to feel dysregulated, and we teach you skills and techniques to emotionally regulate yourself so that way when you're in your busy world, away from the retreat, you've got these techniques that can bring you back into balance and just let you know that you're important. So it's over 2 days and we have lots of different activities, including breath work, cold immersions, inner child work, grounding, movement, lots of different things that you get to experience.
And if it interests you but you're scared, just look on the website, tracyquayle.com, have a scroll down the homepage. No, it's not the homepage, it's on the Reconnect Self retreat page. And just have a look at, we've got 4 testimonials up there. Like, people find it so, life-changing is a big word, but I mean, they're pretty happy with
they're definitely happy that they push themselves to
go.
Yeah, go past that comfort zone. Yeah,
it's a scary thing to do, to go on a retreat for 2 days with a bunch of strangers. But I guarantee you will not feel like strangers at the end of it. And not that there's any pressure to share. There absolutely isn't. But you just can't help but get close bonds over those 2 days and
get really comfortable with each other.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things actually, is seeing.
Mine too.
Because I don't think any of them go into it seeking that.
No.
They're nervous about it.
Yeah.
And nervous about, am I going to open up? again, not that you have to, and putting themselves out of their comfort zone. And then by Sunday afternoon, they don't want to go home.
Yeah, and they're all chatting and they're all just
hugging. And
yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. So the last one for the year is in October. So jump on the website and you can join the wait list for that. And the relationship retreat, which you run in, always get them mixed up, Mandoon Estate in the Swan Valley.
It's because they're so similar.
Yes.
We run the relationship retreats at Mandoon and the individual at Moondine.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. So the relationship retreat is a chance to reset every area of your relationship. We look at everything from communication skills, conflict resolution, intimacy and sex, a vision for your future, expectations of each other, love languages. We cover it all.
And if you want to get a taste of some of the things that are covered, is just listen to other podcast episodes. Like, we did an episode about intimacy recently. So you'll get a vibe for what
you'll learn.
What you'll
and
learn.
what your partner will learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's jump into today's topic. It's probably one that I guess I have, as with many of our episodes, I have
Personal experience.
Personal experience.
I think lots of people are guilty of this. And this is definitely something that people struggle with a lot. And definitely in my world, in my work, there's lots of people that really struggle with people pleasing.
And what are we calling, or not calling, but what are we sort of defining as people pleasing? Is it that kind of...
Well, it's basically prioritising someone else's needs
ahead of
over your own.
Yeah.
And to the point of it being a bit of self-neglect. You're not speaking up, or you're not doing something that you would do if you're really honouring yourself. You're doing that particular action or behaviour based on someone else's need or what you think that they want from you.
Yeah. Now, we could go in a lot of different directions. We could go with where it comes from. Yeah,
let's go with that one, because I think that people don't know why they might be doing that.
Yeah.
But historically, when we think about us humans living in tribes, people had to meet the needs and the expectations of the tribe. If you weren't doing what was expected of you, you might be left behind and you might not be cared for when you're sick.
Yeah.
So it's come from a very primitive way of staying connected with people so that you're being looked after. And if you think about even with kids, there's a big expectation of them of how to behave and what is expected of them. And if they don't do what's expected, they don't get a very nice feeling in their body from the reaction they get from whomever that is.
Yes.
So they've kind of figured out from a safety point of view, it's good to stay aligned and connected with my caregiver or the people around me. And so that might mean meeting needs that you prioritise over your own.
And as a kid, I guess you get those lovely feelings when you get praised.
Well, you
from
get
an
both.
adult.
You get if you didn't meet those needs, you might get the feedback that doesn't make you feel so nice, so you don't like that. And then when you do get the feedback that you did the right thing, in quotation marks, then you get the nice feeling of that praise and that acknowledgement and that warm rapport.
Yep.
So then people can often want to chase that just to make sure that they're staying that, in that connected space with somebody.
And I'm guessing this is just absolutely prevalent throughout.
Yes.
You would see a ton of people who have
Absolutely.
to deal with this.
Every second person.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yep.
Well, because I think, you're absolutely right. When you think about it, everyone is programmed. I mean, it's almost a survival mechanism.
Well,
like
it
you
is.
said.
Yeah, it is.
So you're initially programmed with it, and then you're kind of having to deprogram yourself as an adult.
Yeah. Well, really, that's the teenage years. In the teenage years, people start individuating. They pull away from their caregivers, their family. They start making their own choices. They're moving towards peer relationships and that sense of independence and figuring themselves out. But if you come from a background where it's really hard to do that, maybe the parents are really strict, or there's a very strong religious element where they have a lot of rules and expectations around that, it can be very hard for someone to check in with themselves and see, actually, what is my preference here? They might come with a lot of consequences that they don't want to deal with or are too hard to deal with.
Yeah. And how does it differ from just being a nice person?
Well, I think if you're doing something as a nice person, you're doing that because you've got an abundance of energy and a want to do that. It's not because you're fearing that the relationship is going to be damaged in some way or not as strong in some way if you didn't do that act. And it's not a way of you getting recognition. You're just doing that because that feels nice to you. You want that particular action for that person, or it's not a big deal that you're doing that.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's not going to lead to anything, untoward. If we're doing things for the sake of someone else and we're not checking in with ourselves, that eventually is going to lead to resentment. That can lead to burnout. That can lead to, all sorts of negative emotions.
Yes.
Because we're not actually wanting to do those things.
Well, I found in my experience it was linked to anxiety. Like I didn't. I would say most of the time was work related. Yeah, I would say, I don't know, 95% would have been work related. And what it would be is I loved the positive reinforcement that I would get when I did the right or things that were considered right or good or whatever. You did that project really well, well done, you're a legend, you're so good at your job, blah, 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 all those beautiful, nice endorphins of positive feedback. So at the times when I would let people down, or
you felt like you were letting them down.
Yeah, or maybe forgot about something and nothing had happened yet, but I have the oh my God, I haven't done this. This person's going to be disappointed with me. So it either was disappointment or it hasn't happened yet, but I'm anticipating it's going to happen. That would, the feelings I felt were anxiety.
Yeah.
And it really, I would say I had that. So all through my 20s, all the way probably until my mid-30s, and probably later, because now that I think about it, I started my own business at 36. I still had it then, 100%. So it's probably in my 40s I've finally gotten past it. So what do you recommend that people, like how, I mean, I can tell you sort of, I don't know if there's anything I did specifically. I think it might have been a process and maybe a bit of getting to a certain age and not giving a fuck or giving less fucks. But when you're dealing with people sitting in front of you who have this, and I think there's got to be a spectrum, right? Like, because I can picture a couple of people in my mind. So as a people pleaser, if 10 is extreme, I might have been like a 7. Like I was up towards the top end. But I can picture someone, I'm not going to give any reference of where I know this person, but a 10.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people? How do you help them?
Well, first of all, I want to check in with what do they actually think is fair and reasonable within that relationship. So whether that's a workplace, whether that's a friendship, whether that's a family relationship, whatever it is, what do you personally think is fair and reasonable, around those tasks or responsibilities or things being asked of you? Do you actually think it's fair and reasonable? That's your first tip, because then you can check in with, okay, I'm not really thinking it's fair and reasonable to do that. Well, then why are you doing that? So then you've got to check even deeper. We actually just had the amazing Amy Jacobson on our podcast.
Yes.
And she was talking about checking out the why. Looking at emotional intelligence. So checking out, well, why is it that I'm wanting to do this particular action, even though for me it doesn't feel fair and reasonable, or it's not something I want to do? So what are you actually trying to achieve there? Is it not having that person disappointed with you? Is it not having someone, think less of you? Is there going to be a consequence for you not doing that particular thing? So I could give you an example of that. I have a client where her mum and her grandma lived together, and for a while there, she didn't mind going there, on the weekends to hang out with them and bring the kids and things. But now that the kids are getting a bit older, they're bored. They don't want to go to grandma's house and great grandma's house and just be around adults, and they will be there for hours and hours. So she doesn't like being there for hours and hours, and she also doesn't like being at that house in general. She would rather be at their house or a different location. And so when I talked to her about, well, why do you keep doing that? And it's because she doesn't want to have that conversation. She doesn't want them disappointed. She doesn't want to hear the comments or the critique about that. So she'll just keep doing that. She is getting a bit better now because we're doing some work around that. But for years, she was doing these behaviours just to not have the uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a great reference. So check out the last episode about emotional intelligence with Amy, and she went into some details towards the end of the episode. I'd listen to the whole thing if I was you, but if you want to skip to the difficult conversations, it's towards the end. Because that's a whole skill in itself.
Yeah, it really is. And people often say to me as well, I don't like confrontation.
Yeah.
And I say to them, but why is it going to be confrontation? Why isn't it conversation? And they really get stuck on that. So part of it can be even the block in their head of, I don't want to have that conversation with mum to say, it's not working for us anymore.
Yeah.
Coming to your house.
Yeah.
Or it's too long for the kids. They're getting bored out of their brains and then they're misbehaving and then you're telling them off and it's a whole big cycle. So if it's not working for you, you've got to check back in and go, why am I doing that still then?
So it is very much a self-care thing, isn't it? Because it all comes back to you're willing to make a sacrifice
Of you
just to keep someone else happy.
I'll often say to people, I often talk in third person so they can see kind of what they're doing to themselves. But I'll say, all right, imagine mum in front of you and then imagine, say her name's Sarah. I always use Sarah as my fake example. We put Sarah there as well. And we go, you're literally choosing mum over Sarah.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Like, and don't get me wrong, there's times where we might step outside of our comfort zone and do something that we don't really want to do because someone's sick or, want to help someone out, and that's more of a care for the relationship. But if we're doing things constantly that just doesn't align with us, it's not feeling good, we're not feeling good after being there, then why are we doing that? Is that avoiding that uncomfortable conversation? Is that worried about disappointing somebody?
Yeah, I think for me it was the disappointing people. Or have them thinking, because I, especially with work, I always just had this sense of pride or identity around being good at my job, which I assume a lot of people have because it's such a huge part of your life. And the thought that someone who was in a leadership position felt that I wasn't doing a good job, like it was a tough pill to swallow.
And that's a game where you've got to come back to, what do I think is fair and reasonable? And even that checking in with yourself going, do I think I'm doing a good job? So another example of that is I have a friend where she was complaining one time about she was always getting work given to her kind of right before she should be leaving for the day. And because she's on salary, if she's staying back, she's not getting any extra money. It's just her own time. So because she's on salary, she's not getting paid for that extra time and getting overtime or anything, or even time back. So she started complaining that they always give it to her. And I said, well, why are they always giving it to you and not somebody else? And she might give an example and said, oh, well, whenever Dave, gets asked, he always says he can't because he's got to pick up his kids from school or sport or whatever it might be. And I said, well, what's happened is you've trained them to ask you.
Yeah.
The other colleague has trained them, he's never available. He's not going to do, longer than his work hours. He's going to leave right on the dot of, his time to finish. Whereas you'll sit back for another hour and a half and get that done. So it's a no-brainer. They're gonna ask him. And the only reason you're saying yes is that people pleasing.
Yeah.
Because you're not wanting to stay back an hour and a half in your work. No one does.
I think this is, again, from a conversation we had with Amy on the last episode, is our generation in particular. So we're Gen X. We were born in 78, which reveals our age. Am I allowed to do that?
Well, you've outed me now.
Where our generation were told, just shut the fuck up and get on with it.
Yeah, we really were. And that's disconnecting then from how you're feeling.
Yes. Whereas I see, and a lot of people our age will view this as a negative of the younger generations. They have boundaries.
They really do.
Like, I guess, I don't know all my generations, but the millennials backwards from there, they will stand up for themselves in the workplace.
They are the ones that think what is fair and reasonable.
Yeah.
And then they're pushing back their boundaries if they don't think it's fair and reasonable.
Because they've been parented differently to how we were parented.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, if you're dealing with this and you are of our generation, that I would question it and think, well, why can't I stand up for myself? Why can't I put my happiness above my boss or whoever it happens to be?
Often it can also come from parents' expectations around careers.
Yep.
The parents expect them to go to uni, they expect them to have a certain type of career.
Yes.
And there's even certain cultures where, those cultures will actually name that if you're not a lawyer, a doctor,
Well, it's
an engineer.
There's a name for that. I don't think this is racist. A tiger mum.
But it's not even just the Asian cultures. It's coming from lots of different cultures nowadays where I think that they see that as being, a way of being successful, but it's really pigeonholed into a few different career choices. And if the kids aren't making that, they're almost letting the whole family down.
And I actually 100% get it, because a lot of them, because we're probably talking about immigrants when we were kids, so they're first generation. So their parents had gone through massive sacrifice to move here. What a crazy, scary experience that would be in the coming over here, maybe not speaking the language, like so many cultural things to get your head around. And the whole reason you're doing it is because you want the best for your kids. And in their reasoning would be, well, I want the best for my kids, so I want them to have the best job possible. And then there's this list of, 5 or 10 careers, doctor, lawyer, dentist, accountant, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
They're safe. They will have a guaranteed good life.
Yeah.
But then they obviously piled on and I can think of a bunch of kids from my school that were probably going through that. I'm not sure it's a bigger problem now with the next generation. So when we look at the kids that our kids go to school with, it's probably less. But certainly in the 90s and maybe early 2000s, I think it was a big thing. And I get it, so I'm not judging at all.
But that's the pressure that they would feel.
Correct.
They would really feel like, there's been such sacrifice my parents have made. How can I not just meet what they are expecting of me, even though it just might feel terrible for them doing that particular career, role, whatever.
So what are some things that people can do to, I guess it's choose themselves?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, really going underneath what you value, so similar to what we've said in previous episodes, where it's really getting clear on what do you value, what do you really want your life to look like, what does success look like for you, and just getting really clear on those things will help you to then be able to communicate with other people, about what you find successful and what aligns for you.
Yep.
But if you don't even speak those words, then no one's even having those conversations, then you're going to be stuck with that expectation that someone has of you.
So at some point you kind of do, as horrible as it might or scary as it might feel, you've just got to step up and have the conversation.
And have that conversation, yeah. Because often what's happening as well is, if I move it back to, the mother or even the family example, often things can be running out of habits.
Yeah.
So, people are going to Sunday dinner on a weekly basis, or they might be going, to do certain things for their family on certain time frames. And then after a while, like the client that I was just referring to, it doesn't work anymore. At some point, it needs to change, but then people are afraid to have those conversations for worrying about disappointing their family or their parents or whomever it is, and feeling like they're letting them down, compared to actually just explaining, hey, that doesn't work for me now, but let's look at a different way of us connecting, or, me meeting that need that you might have.
Yeah. And it's probably more of a thing for, like, again, if I go back to that scale, that 10 is, the absolute extreme of people pleasing. People towards the higher end of that spectrum, like, they're going to be running on
fumes.
Yeah, like adrenaline and stress and what is it? Is cortisol the bad one?
Yeah, it's cortisol and adrenaline.
Yeah.
They're your stress hormones. And you know what? When you think about it, it's not just, your parents you no longer live with, or friends or workplaces. People could be doing this for their children as well.
Well, I was going to say they could also be doing it for, like, randoms.
Oh, yes.
And sometimes more so.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, parents at school.
Yep.
Or people in the sporting club that you're part of, or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's where, if you're listening to this and it's resonating, and you're identifying and going, maybe I am pretty high on that spectrum. What is it doing for you?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a nice way to be, a nice way to live. And at the end of the day, the other thing I thought I might talk about is, even if you did have the conversation, or you just kind of eased back and stopped doing so many things for other people, I don't think those people are going to think that much less of you. You know, I don't know. It depends on the situation. Like the boss one at work probably needs a conversation if you're expected to do 90 minutes of overtime every week or day or whatever it happens to be.
But I think if there's an ongoing expectation, you do have to have that conversation to change that expectation.
Yeah.
If it's an ad hoc, you know, this person's going to ask me this. Another way to think of it, and this is another episode you can go back to when we talked about friendships and looking at those rings, where I gave that example of if you put everything down, you know, all your social network kind of down on a piece of paper, almost like a dartboard, and you're mapping out your social network, you really want to look at, once again, what's fair and reasonable for me to offer to any of those people in those rings, because you shouldn't be offering the same level of you to the people that are in the outer edges.
So why don't you talk that through? And also, it did cross my mind, there's a jump on Tracey's Instagram, scroll down, there's a 2-minute reel of you explaining this thing, and you're holding a whiteboard. So if you see Tracey holding a whiteboard, click on that reel.
Yeah. So
explain what it is.
Well, basically it's looking at every single person in your world, so family, friends, you know, your partner, people at school, if you're a school parent, like wherever people are coming into your, you know, into your environment, and you would sort of just do get a piece of paper and draw a little circle in the middle, and then you're doing rings around that circle. Again, go and look at the Instagram so you can see the example of that. But you're just putting everyone in your life on that piece of paper, and the closer to the center circle where your name is in the middle would show you that your relationship is closer to that person, and then further back would show the relationship is, you know, a little bit more distant. But then you really look at, well, what am I doing for people in those outer edges? Because people pleasers will be often offering the same level of themselves for the outer edges as what they would for the inner edges. And so then why are you doing that? Because also, would you expect them to do that for you? And quite often they don't. Like, you know, if I give you a stupid example and go, all right, someone's moving house, they're probably only asking their inner people to help them move house. So if you've got someone in your outer edges asking you to help them move house, stop and think, would I have asked them to help me move house?
Yes.
And that can also help you gauge, well, I don't want to keep giving more than what, you know, is an imbalance, because at some point that's going to be really out of balance for me and I'm going to be burning myself out. So of course you want to do those things and maintain relationships and connections for the people that, you know, you really value. But if you've got someone, and I hear this a lot from people that are tradies, where they'll go, I haven't heard from that person for 3 years, and all of a sudden they're building a house and now they want me to do all the wiring, or they want me to do all the plumbing, or the whatever the thing might be. And they're expecting them to give them a discount. No, that's not your relationship that you have with them.
Yeah.
So if you're, you know, giving discounts or going above and beyond for someone that you haven't seen for years, you're definitely people pleasing.
Yeah.
Because you're not wanting to do that really.
Yeah.
You're doing that because you're trying to maintain that relationship, even though it's not really that connected anyway. So you really want to check into your relationships as well to see, you know, what am I willing to do, you know, for somebody else? And look, we could also be moving into love languages. So it's not always that we're doing things, you know, that others are expecting. It could be that we're wanting to give these things, you know, as a way of showing love. But yeah, if we've got someone that's expecting something from us that we don't like anymore, or we don't want to do anymore, and we're not speaking up about that, and we're maintaining it, then absolutely we're people pleasing for someone else's sake.
And I imagine people take advantage. So
yes, people will not pull back. They're not the ones to say, actually, that's too much. I shouldn't ask you to do blah, blah, blah. Like, they're going to just ask. And don't get me wrong, not everybody, but I'm sure everybody has met a person that will take as much as they can.
Yeah.
So there's no stops to that. So the only stop is going to be you saying, actually, I can't do that. You know, I'm sure all the school mums out there have always met the person that, you know, might never really contribute to certain things, but is always asking for the favours and asking for the pickups and asking for the, you know, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that gets old.
Yeah. And we can cut this bit if you don't want me to say this, but I used to hear you pick up the phone and it would be someone that you haven't chatted to for a very long time, and they're going through some sort of crisis in their life, and they just so happen to want to phone you at that particular moment. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that you're a people pleaser,
no,
but there are people out there who will take advantage,
yes,
or who don't reciprocate, or don't give you that same love, attention, value, whatever it happens to be in return, but they're happy to get it from you when they need it.
Yeah. So again, you've got to check in with what do I think is fair and reasonable for that relationship, and then you need to start pulling back in that way, because otherwise it will lead to resentment. You know, if you're finding that you're giving and giving and giving to a person, and then they're not really available when you ask for, you know, something for you that you need, you're going to resent that.
Yeah.
So that's why, again, we want to always come back to only do what you genuinely are wanting to do, because then you're not going to resent that. Like if it never got reciprocated, that's okay. I didn't need you to do anything for me.
Yeah.
So it's coming from more of a genuine place, and that's more an abundant place. You know, you've got the energy to do that. Whereas if we're doing things and it's feeling like it's depleting us and it's pulling from us, then that's where that resentment's going to creep in, and the relationship's going to be impacted anyway. So as much as you're thinking you're being generous or you're being kind or sweet, you're actually not, because you're eroding that relationship away, because now you're thinking differently about it.
I think it's the power of no. So, and I think that's easier to do when you get older. I think I'm picturing a couple of people who've come to like our beach sessions and stuff, and there's younger listeners out there, people in their 20s and stuff, that it gets easier to say no as you get older. I don't know why. I just think you learn through experience. But I would start getting that word in your vocabulary. Yeah. I can't say that word.
And
vocabulary.
Also, sit with that uncomfortable feeling. Yep. When you say no, it will be uncomfortable. You're not going to be skipping for joy, when you're saying no. Well, maybe for some things, but yeah, really you're going to be feeling like, oh, I don't want to say this. I don't want to have this conversation. And then you're also, again, worried of what they're going to think.
Yep.
But come back to that third person where you go, but what does Tracey think? Yeah. Why is she not as important?
Yep.
So really come back to, you're just as important as that other person. If you're doing something as a love language, that's completely different. But, really think about, am I wanting to do that? Or is this just out of habit? Is this just because I haven't had that conversation yet to change that expectation that they've had for me for so long?
You meant Tracey as in you, or Tracey the counsellor?
No, Tracey me.
Because I thought Sarah was the example.
No, but I was just meaning in terms of me,
okay.
like little me.
So you don't have to think what Tracey the counsellor thinks.
No, me.
You yourself think.
Yeah.
Is over-apologising also a bit of a symptom here?
And that's, again, because we're wanting to stay connected in the relationship. We're taking responsibility for things that aren't really ours to take responsibility for. And in fact, some of my clients tell me that their husbands get really mad at them for constantly apologising when it's not their fault. So it's not even an appealing quality when someone's over-apologising.
Yeah.
And really they're just wanting to smooth something over. They're wanting something to be done and dusted. And they might not even be really getting to the root cause of what even happened just now.
Yeah.
If you're suddenly, sorry. Or
yeah, I feel like it comes across as
a bit weak.
Yeah, weakness. I was about to say that and I was like, oh, is that too harsh? But
no, because it is. It's a really wishy-washy, I want to just sort everything out and I just want to smooth everything over.
Yeah.
It's not got that solidness of...
It comes across as you're so scared of dealing with those uncomfortable feelings that you're just going to apologise and try and
smooth it over,
make it right, so you don't have to... what we talked about in the last episode with Amy is feel it.
Yeah. Feel it, or have those uncomfortable conversations that you don't want to deal with.
Yeah. So just in case you didn't listen to that episode, there's one part of that I want to cover off, which is related to people pleasing, is the feel it part of it. So for me, when I was in the corporate world and had a boss that I had to answer to, and even when I worked for myself and I had clients, certainly when I was first starting my business, I wanted my clients to absolutely love me and think I was amazing. So I never wanted to do anything wrong. And like I said, if I messed up on something or didn't deliver on a certain time frame or thought that was about to happen, then I would have all these anxious feelings. So this concept of feel it is... another way to describe it is people will say you've got to lean into the feeling. It's basically not running away from it, not trying to numb it.
Shut it down,
whatever. You experience it. So for me, and this took me a very long time, it's not an overnight thing, but an anxiety was the one that I dealt with, is you essentially go, okay, I can identify that I am anxious right now. It's unpleasant. I don't like it. It might last for 12 hours, 24 hours, a week, like however long it's going to last. That's how long it's going to last. It's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
And then to, as we sort of talked about, it's observe that I can't fix it. Like the feeling is going to last as long as the feeling lasts, unless I become a people pleaser, go out of my way totally to try and resolve whatever situation it is, or over apologize or whatever it happens to be. But that's not a long-term solution. The long-term solution is to be okay with, from time to time, I'm going to feel uncomfortable.
And also, like what you just said, sitting in those uncomfortable feelings of knowing that I'm not responsible for everyone else's feelings.
Yeah.
So, yes, I might say something to, like that client was, having to tell her mum she didn't want to go there, every time. That's going to be disappointing for the mum.
Yeah.
Well, mum's going to have to sit in that.
Yes.
That's not my client's responsibility to take those feelings away from her.
Yeah, absolutely.
She just has to name what she's going through and what she's feeling, and then it's mum's responsibility to deal with her emotions. But I think that's also where some of this has come from, that maybe early on in childhood, the child has been sort of trained to watch out for people's moods. And there's another thing that people talk about: fight, flight and freeze, but there's another one called fawn. Now, fawning is when we want to stay connected with someone. And so we'll be doing anything to just keep that relationship really strong, but we might be having conversations that are of no interest to us.
Yes.
We might be fussing over somebody again to keep that connection, to keep that relationship feel safe. Like maybe it's dad's come home in a really bad mood and now we fawn all over him to change that energy so that he's not going to set off and, be in a bad mood again.
Yep.
So we've learnt some of those techniques in childhood. Even I've got a client where she was sat next to the naughty kid in class because she was the good girl. And she couldn't be.
That
she
became
couldn't.
her identity.
Yep, the good girl. Yeah. So, and even she had a sister that was, a bit more of the problem child in the family. So the sister was the naughty one almost, and then she was the good one. So it became her identity. So then she's learning not to speak up. She's not checking in with herself and going, was that okay with me? I'm sitting next to this kid that's really annoying. And instead she's kind of been taught, just ignore it, just.
Yeah. I can actually identify with that a little bit and I've never really necessarily made that connection. But my identity was always and not that my brother was a bad kid. I mean, he had his moments in his teenage years. But my identity was always the reliable one because I was the older sibling. I am the older sibling. I was reliable, head on my shoulders, not that I was a genius, but I was decent at school and, was the one who was always destined to go to uni, and that became my identity.
Yeah.
And I guess now that I think about it, did I want to go to uni? I don't really even know. I think I was just, that was determined, and I didn't want to let my family down because I was going to be the first one to get a degree out of the whole both sides of my family, I think. And yeah, it was my destiny, and I just adopted that identity and just ran with it.
Yeah. So people can do this in all sorts of environments. You think about teenagers, in a group, like we've got 2 of our kids that are teenagers, and you can just see how many kids would be in that situation where they might not want to do what the plans of the group are, but they're going to go along with that to keep their relationships all connected. They don't want to have those uncomfortable conversations around, I don't really want to do that. So again, we can be people pleasing and staying connected in our social groups.
Should we move into some tools or tips or anything that we can help people sort of deal with this?
Yeah.
Now, you've written down some for me, so I'll read them out to you and then you can expand on them. So the first one you put was pause and check in with your body before saying yes, and trace it back to that nervous system regulation.
Yeah. Well, when someone's being asked a question or having an expectation, put on them or asked of them, it can be, again, for a people pleaser, very habitual to straight away just say, yep, that's fine, I can do that, and not even sort of check in with, hey, when am I going to get that done? How am I going to figure that out? So stop with the automatic yes. Stop, check in with yourself, and maybe even think of what's a phrase that you can use just to buy yourself some time. You know, like I've got a friend where they always say, I've got to check the diary at home. So if they're out and about, you know, and that's legit, they do have to check the diary, but that buys them some time to go, is that going to work in our schedule? Is that going to be a busy week for us? They've got a chance to actually really contemplate, do we want to attend that?
That's another, you know, I keep making this reference of when you get older, but I'm convinced this one is true. When you're younger, you just basically, if someone invites you to something, you go, oh yeah, I'll go.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you really want to go, if you think you're going to have a good time while you're there, sacrificing what you could be doing, the opportunity cost of going.
Yeah.
When you get older, I think you do natural. Not everyone. So, you know, if you are one of those people who say yes and just think, oh yeah, you know, it's just a thing that I'll go to. Well, is it bringing you any joy to go to that thing?
Yeah.
What could you be doing instead? Like,
yeah.
It's a big deal. That your time is one of your biggest attributes. Is that the right word? Whatever. Assets. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's right, because even say with the workplace and someone says, oh, hey, can you stay back and do blah, blah, blah. It might be also that people get caught off guard and don't know how to say no. So I would even say, try and have a little, a reason up your sleeve. Like if you know that that's quite common, that people get asked to, you know, stay back at work, or that friend always asks you to pick up the kid, but it drives you crazy that, you know, you have to go out of your way and she doesn't even really seem appreciative. Straight away have an excuse in your mind before that's going to happen.
Yes.
You know, you could go, oh, I would love to, but unfortunately I've got to, you know, nip off today. Whatever the excuse is, but just don't have it be that you've got an excuse for every single time. Like if it's, you know, ad hoc, you could do that. But if it's every single week, then eventually you might have to have the conversation with, honey, I'd love to help you, but it just never works on a Friday. I'm always too busy.
I was going to say, I think your ultimate goal is to get to a point where
honesty,
where you can just go, nah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, or I can't because, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then again, if you can do it and you want to do it, then it's coming from more of an abundant place and a more of a loving place compared to, oh, she always does this and why do I always have to do that for her? Like, again, that's going to build resentment in the relationship. So only really do the things that you feel happy to do, even if it didn't come back your way at another time.
Yeah. Like
more of that generosity of spirit compared to feeling, oh, I've got to do this for somebody.
Yes.
That's a different energy.
Yeah. I was just sort of thinking of, because I'm a DJ, obviously. No one, I'm sure, long-time listeners.
I'm sure you've told everybody on every episode that you're a DJ.
DJ Scotty Q on YouTube. Look it up. No, honestly, it's good. You like it. So you'd assume that I like going to clubs and stuff and watching other DJs.
Oh, you do not.
And some of my DJ friends will say, oh, such and such is playing at this club and we should go. And they know it enough now that I'm going to say no. And I don't even really have to give a reason.
Yeah.
But the way I handle it is I go, no, I just, there's two reasons. One, ironically, I don't like loud music. And two, I kind of don't like crowds.
Yeah.
And both of those things are, you know, big parts of going to a club.
Well, what you're describing now is kind of knowing yourself well enough to educate the people around you as to what to expect from you.
Yep.
So the same way that my friends know, you know, that actually funny enough, we're being invited out for one of our friends' birthdays, and she said, or her husband's birthday, she said, we'll go and do darts at 4:00 and then we'll go for an early dinner, and that way it can be an early night, you'll be done by 9:30, 10. I was like, that's still an early night. I'm normally in bed at 9:30, so to finish dinner at 9:30, we have different versions of early night. But the reason why she was explaining that to me is because I've trained her, you know, with that. So I don't need to people please in terms of, you know, saying yes to invitations and people feeling like, you know, I'm being rude if I say no. Like they know.
Yeah.
You know, that thing. So I think you knowing yourself well enough to know what your preference is and what your boundaries are, that's crucial, you know. And even that permission giving to say no is crucial, because if you're never giving yourself that permission to say no, what are you setting yourself up for? Like, that's a really busy life you're going to have if you're going to say yes to everything people, you know, ask of you and offer, you know, for you. But also, even if you have committed to something, I've been more guilty of this than saying yes to things in general. Mine would be, I've said yes because I genuinely want to go, but for whatever reason, it's no longer as desirable. Maybe I'm not feeling very well, or I'm tired, or whatever the thing is. But I would always have still gone I would always feel like my word is my word and I'm going to be there. And then one of my friends taught me this, where she would ring up or she would message, whatever it would be, and she'd say, actually, I'm not feeling very well and I've got a really busy week, so I need to just rest this weekend so I can be better for the week. And I used to be like, oh my God, I can't believe she's not coming. But then it didn't bother me, and I wasn't upset with her for not coming. I just was surprised that she had such good self-care that she could do that. So then I started realising, this is years and years ago, well, I can do that too. Like, why am I pushing myself to go on those times where I'm feeling the exact same way that she was just feeling? So that gave me a permission to go, I don't need to feel like I'm letting everybody down. She didn't let me down.
Yeah.
Like, I still had a good time with other people. So even just checking in with, you're guessing what the other person's response is going to be. It might not always be that way.
That probably is your version of people pleasing. Do you reckon? Not now, but back.
Before.
Yeah. Yeah. That was your thing.
Yeah. Going to all the activities and events and yeah. Even if I didn't,
because you'd want to be there for them or show up for them or
Yeah.
whatever it happened to be. If someone made the effort to invite you, you would automatically go, okay, well, yeah, I want to be there for you.
Yeah.
Don't want to let you down, kind of thing. That's
Yeah.
probably your version, because you never had the version that I had of,
No.
just feeling horrible, like if you were perceived as not being at this high standard that you'd sort of set that your identity was based around.
Mine might be more giving my energy more so.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you were saying about the conversations.
Yes.
It would be more like that. I would go kind of above and beyond when I shouldn't really have needed to feel that way.
Correct. If they weren't in that tight inner circle.
Yeah. So giving more of that energy than what's required. Yeah.
That one of the other phrases that you wrote down for me was "let me get back to you," which is sort of what you were talking about.
Yeah,
before.
so just delaying that answer, getting a chance to really be clear with what you feel, what you want, check your schedule. Because again, if you're just saying yes straight off the bat, well, now we've got an expectation. Now that person thinks we actually can, and it's going to be harder for us to come back and say, oh, I know I said I'd take you to the airport on Wednesday, but actually that's not going to work. That's going to be more uncomfortable for you compared to just saying, hey, let me just check.
Yeah. Another one you wrote here is notice the patterns. When do you feel obligated to please, and what are you afraid of?
Yeah. So it could be looking at, like the client that I was talking about before, lots of her people pleasing comes around her family, whereas she might be better in her relationship, like her with her husband or with her kids. So for her, it was trying to figure out, well, what is it I'm trying to avoid around that? And that was her trying to avoid that uncomfortable reaction mum's going to give or grandma's going to give, feeling like she's letting them down. She was trying to avoid that yucky feeling, but instead she's giving it to herself.
Yeah. Is this something that you see in relationships? Can a person be a people pleaser to their partner?
Yeah, they can do more things in the relationship than probably they would feel is fair and reasonable. They could be apologising all the time, even if they think, well, actually I didn't cause that, but let's just smooth it all over.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
So again, not really being authentic to your wants and needs and desires.
Yeah. And one of your last tips here is positive affirmations or self-talk or journal prompts.
Well, have your own back. Like, kind of that third person kind of comes in here where I can just go, it's okay, Tracey, you don't need to say yes to that person. Like, me having my own back, me supporting me. Because again, it will feel uncomfortable. So go back to those teenage years when those kids first started to say to parents, hey, I don't want to do that, go to grandma's on Sunday, I want to go out with my friends. They're going to get that response from the parents that's uncomfortable because they're disappointed. So it's you having to stick with that yucky feeling, but you remind yourself, no, this is my preference. It's okay for me to feel, this way, and just sit with it for a little bit longer. But usually we're trying to avoid that yucky feeling of disappointing somebody. Whereas if we can actually manage that emotion better, then we're not going to be people pleasing because we actually can just ride that out and know that, hey, that's for our best interest.
I just asked about relationships then, and something popped into my head about the cup overflowing. And I would guess, and you can confirm or deny, because we can talk about this cup overflowing analogy, but if you're a people pleaser to all of these people in your outer circle or at work or wherever it is, and you're burning up all of your energy and whatever, then you're probably going to lash out at the people closest to you.
And be depleted for the people closest to you.
Yeah.
So, if you're the person that's gone and run the sporting club or you're on a committee or you're doing something or other and you're doing all these extra tasks, even if you don't want to. So again, if we want to do that, that would probably give you energy because you're enjoying what you're doing, you're liking what you're contributing. But if you're doing that because you're feeling like, it's an expectation of you, and again, you're just doing that for someone else's benefit, you will probably burn yourself out. Then you won't have the energy to do the things that you genuinely want to do, or for the people that you genuinely want to do those things for. Yeah, you've only got a certain amount of capacity.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the cup overflowing thing? Because I think that analogy still
Well, it's just that build up. And if you're doing everything for everybody else and you've not got that self-care, which obviously we always bang on about, you're not emptying that out and you're not creating what they call a window of tolerance, where the next stressor that comes in, I can cope with that. If I'm already full and at capacity, well, that's just going to leave me feeling overwhelmed, stressed, angry, upset, whatever the emotion comes out like, but it's coming from that place of fullness. So if you're not having that balance, and you're not having that balance because you're not checking in with yourself and you're giving all that extra energy, to somebody else, yeah, you're gonna suffer.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to cover off?
No.
I think we've done a pretty good job.
Yeah. So our top tips would be, check in with yourself. Do I actually want to do this task or behavior or responsibility, whatever it might be? Buy yourself some time so that you don't have to answer straight away, that you get that chance to check in with yourself and see whether that's still working. Have a think about in your life, where are those areas? So, we were saying, was it coming from the workplace? Was it coming from the family? Like, where are you more likely to people please? It might be across the board. You can have people that just do that for everybody, but it might be showing up just more in one area or another. It might be just around a certain one or two people. So really, again, checking in, why am I not speaking up for myself? Where has this even come from? Yeah. You can do a little bit of backtracking as well. Thinking back to what your roles in the family were or what you were like in your friendship groups. Did you speak up? Did you, say your opinion, or were you a bit more of go with the flow and let everyone else decide?
Yeah. That's, I was listening to a podcast today, right? And there's a really, really successful guy, like multi-millionaire, workaholic, but, admits that he is. And he said something interesting, because you just said, dig into why you're a people pleaser, right? This guy was so smart in everything he does, but he was anti-therapy because he was like, I don't need to know why.
You do need to know why.
Yeah, he was like, well, if I have a problem, I can identify the problem. This is how I'll fix it. I don't need to know why that problem is in my life. And I think it's going
to come back in.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was listening to him going. And this guy has got millions of followers, right? Yeah. Amazing person. I haven't figured out his backstory yet, but I bet you he has quite a traumatic backstory that sort of led him to this being the way he is, which is because usually people who are ultra successful, there's a reason why they're like that. They're chasing something. But I've never heard anyone, particularly on a podcast like that, which is for anyone who's interested, the guy's name is Alex Hormozi. He's a big on YouTube and on Instagram, and he was on the Modern Wisdom podcast, which is a very good show. It's interesting. And I just can't get my head around it. Why would you not want to know why you have this behavior that's impacting your life?
Well, that just tells me that it's going to come back again for him.
Yeah,
because it will keep coming back until you learn the lesson.
Yeah, he's mid-30s, so, he's still probably not...
Got some room to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, you want to dig into why, because that will ultimately give you the context of...
and even going back and doing that repair. So for the client that was, at school and had to be the good girl, it's her going back and even kind of visiting that younger self and saying... You don't need to be the good girl. You're good just as you are. You don't need to be tolerant of someone else's bad behaviour to be a good girl. Yep. And so while you were in that environment and that's how you coped, you don't need to do that now.
Yep.
We're not in that same environment. This doesn't need to be something that continues. And that's what happens. We just continue out of habit.
Yeah. Good. Well done.
You too.
Very useful tips. Hopefully everyone got something out of that. Okay. We will call it a day. Last little bit of housekeeping is if we have a newsletter. I talk about this every single episode.
You do.
If you want to join the newsletter, because you also find out about other things that we're doing via the newsletter, whether it was like the 30-day challenge that we did, or if you live in Perth and you want to come to one of our breathwork sessions. The newsletter is the best way to find out about those things. Second best way would be follow Tracey on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, which is at tracyquayle.therapy. The website to join the mailing list is tracyquayle.com. Thank you to everyone who's given us a 5-star review on Spotify. That made me very pleased when I saw how many people have done that. So, and also to people like who email us and message us and stuff.
We really do appreciate that. So thank you so much for that. That feedback goes a long way.
Yes. And also people have been telling their friends, which is a great thing to do. So thank you. And they sometimes email us and say, I've told 6 friends about your show.
So thank you. We do appreciate that. Yeah.
And I think Spotify has a way that you can share the show. So, if you want to do that, that's a good way. Is use that facility and share the link with them. But thank you to everyone who's done that. And other things would be if you want to come on a retreat, we have retreats.
Yep.
October for the individual and
September.
Yeah, September for the relationship retreat. That is it. Thank you again, everybody. And we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.